His mercies are never ending. I may be unworthy, He just keeps loving me. Unto you, Lord, my soul gives praise. All day long, your dear anthems raise. Night and night, night as I live, I'll give you praises. You have made me whole again. Oh, yeah, your loving care. I'm adorned by your righteousness. Night as I live, I'll give you praises. You have made me whole again. Oh, have you heard? Did you know? He made the world at his command. Sky and sea, you and me, in the palm of his hand. Have you heard? Did you know? Awesome the works of his great hands, all is changed, rearranged with one touch of his hand. Unto you, Lord, my soul gives praise. All day long, your dear anthems raise. Night as I live, I'll give you praises. You have made me whole again. Oh, yeah, with your loving care. All day long, adoration reigns. Night as I live, I'll give you praises. You have made me whole again. Oh, yes, I live. I'll give. Lord, yes, I live. Unto the King. Oh, what a wonderful day that will be. Jesus is coming again. Oh, marvelous message we bring, glorious carols we sing, wonderful words of the King. Oh, Jesus is coming again. Oh, marvelous message we bring, glorious carols we sing, wonderful words of the King. Oh, Jesus is coming again. How wise, exclaim. Speak to the mountains and made all walls the same. Oh, the earth and heaven.
Okay, so good afternoon. It's the 2nd of October. Welcome to WeGo Live. It is a brand new month, and our theme is Shift Your Headspace. My name is Paulette Nemhard, and I'm with my husband, Errol. We are your hosts for this week, and we are really looking forward to this month with so much to take our headspace to another place. It's going to be really important to find out what are some of the things that could affect our headspace this month. And we're really thankful that we have today Dr. Sam Davis, a naturopathic doctor, and we will also be hearing from Lulu Clale, who is our resident psychologist, and she will be with us for the entire month, sharing with us things that we can look through.
Yeah. Just welcome to everybody on the Zoom. Welcome to everybody on Facebook. Welcome to everyone on YouTube. And as Paulette said, this is really a significant month for us because, you know, as the pandemic continues to rage on, and right now we're in lockdown level 1, we were actually speaking to some friends of ours last night. And he's a doctor, and he was saying the degree of anxiety that is emerging in many people's lives, and the amount of antidepressant tablets that are being taken for people with depression is escalating at an exponential rate. And so this, I believe, is one of those themes, headspace, that comes just at the right time for many of us to begin to connect into. And I would really invite any one of you who are watching right now to invite a friend who you know may be struggling with depression, or maybe struggling with anxiety, who are struggling with different challenges as a result of this pandemic and more. Please DM, send a message to them, help them, share the link with them so that they can get onto this platform and be a part of the conversation that we're going to have. We're a church that loves. Love is our mission, and spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ is by far the most preeminent thing that we can do at this stage. Paulette.
So now we're over to Tube on the ones and twos, our resident, I'm going to say today, DJ Tube, as I know you don't want me to say a musical warrior. You don't want me to say that. So I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Paulette. Yes, I'll take DJ, holy DJ. So happy Sabbath, everybody, and welcome to WeGo Live. This Sabbath, I got a praise and worship song. You know, I thought it would be nice for us to sing along to something. One of our conferences was having camp meeting, and so our praise and worship song is going to be facilitated by the praise team that was at the camp meeting, and the song is "There Is No One Like You, Lord." So let's all sing along on mute, but wherever you are, you can just sing along to the song.
Father God, we give you glory. We declare there's absolutely no one like you. Kuba bonke uThixo akakho njengawe, kuba nenceba zakho zingena phakade. We declare in this place there is absolutely nothing that can compare to you, or no one that can compare to you. Let's just declare there is
none like you.
No one.
No one else can touch my heart like you do.
Listen. I have searched all over.
I have searched for all eternity, Lord, and find there is none.
That's your name,
like
Jesus.
You.
One more time, wherever you are, lift up your voice and declare, there is
none like you.
Father, we give you glory, we give you praise.
No one else can touch my heart like you do.
Said I have searched so
I have searched for all eternity, Lord, and find
This is the best time to lift up the volume and just declare together with us, there is none like Jesus.
There is none like
Hey, Lord. Lift your praises unto our God and declare, no one else
can touch my heart like you do.
Said I have searched all over.
I have searched for all eternity, Lord, and find there is none.
One more time. We just need to declare all over South Africa and all over the world, there is absolutely none like Jesus.
There is none like you.
No one else can touch my heart.
No one else can touch my heart like you do.
Said I have searched all over.
I have searched for all eternity, Lord.
Still couldn't find no one. Let's stay there.
Like you.
Said I have searched for all eternity.
I have searched for all eternity, Lord.
And found there is none like you, Jesus. Hey, right there. I have searched for all eternity, Jesus.
I have searched for all eternity, Lord.
Couldn't find, and there is none. There is none. Said I have
searched for all eternity, Lord.
couldn't find Jesus.
There is none like.
Let's stay there. Said I
searched for all eternity, Lord.
still couldn't find no one, Jesus. No one like, no one, Jesus. No one like you. No one.
I have searched for all eternity, Lord, and find there is none like you. There is none like you.
Kuba bonke Thixo akekho ofana nawe nongalinganiswa nawe.
Amen.
Amen. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Tube. Indeed, there is none like God. At this stage, we're going to just bow our heads for a word of prayer, just inviting God's Spirit into our midst. Oh, Lord God, indeed, there is none like you. We can testify, we can glorify that you are a God that we can trust. There is no failure in you, oh God. There is nothing that you cannot do. And praying, oh God, for those who are watching, those who are anxious, those who are waiting, oh God, those who are wondering why and their circumstance has led them to this place. I'm praying, oh God, that where there seems to be no way, add a road on, because we know that there is a way through everything. We pray for a blessing, oh God, and we pray that you may speak through the speakers today. Amen.
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 Amen. We'd like to, at this stage, invite Lulu to come forward. Lulu, we've called it Peace in Everyday Life. You probably have a different title, but Lulu, there are so many people going through so many things that are just getting everyone down. Errol spoke about the anxiety levels that are going through. I know that that's happening in adults, it's happening in children. We really just want to have your take, Lulu, on shifting one's headspace. What are some of the things that we're facing and how can we find a way through? Over to you.
Okay, thank you and happy Sabbath to everyone. As you rightly mentioned, I think the biggest thing that we're definitely seeing in practices around the world really is an increase in anxiety. And so today I just wanted to touch on some things that I've generally been speaking about in groups, in corporate groups that I get called into to speak just around issues that we're all dealing with. And the predominant theme tends to be anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. So I wanted to talk about 10 things that I think, we could all be implementing in our lives to help with our mental health in general. So the first one is making social connection a priority. And this is a difficult one because for a lot of us, I guess almost everybody on this platform at one stage or other has been in some form of lockdown or other way. Physical connection with other people was prohibited to a large extent. And that's the one thing we need to remember, that we are primarily social beings. We were made to connect with each other. The fact that God created Adam and then saw that there was something he was missing and created Eve for Adam tells us that we, by our very nature, are supposed to interact with other people, and face-to-face interactions. While it's all well and good that we have technology, it doesn't and it cannot replace face-to-face contact. And in saying this, I'm not saying throw caution to the wind and just, visit everybody willy-nilly, but have a core set of people that you're still able to connect with face-to-face. I think that's very important, because the other thing that's happened is that while we've gone online, we've lost the faces. And that's one thing that I personally find very difficult, is like, well, I'll be doing this online and everybody's video is off. When you're asked to put on videos, because I want to connect, I want to see like how people are responding. We pick up cues on what somebody else is going through by seeing them. There's so many things, Paulette, I could pick up in what's going on with you just by physically seeing you. And so that's the first one, make social connection a priority. The second one is to stay active. And staying active doesn't mean, we all have to hit the gym and, go hard and strong. Staying active could simply be, doing a 5-kilometer walk every day, or 2.5, whatever it is, that 30 minutes of exercise, of being active in some way. It helps us to get better sleep. When we have better sleep, exercise also helps improve our memory and also relieves stress, because the anxiety comes from a lot of pent-up stress, that we never get a chance to release. So staying active definitely helps with that. The third one is talk to someone. Talking to someone, having meaningful conversations with somebody. Find somebody that at least on a daily or every other day you can have a meaningful conversation with. And it's important to have that also outside of your immediate circle, because there are certain things that, you want to share with another woman because another woman may be able to understand, or as a man, you want to share those with another man. There are things that men share with each other that, if your husband were to share with you, you wouldn't quite get. So talking to someone is important, and talking about what you're going through as well, more importantly, right? The fourth one is appeal to your senses. Get in touch with yourself. So we know we have 5 senses, right? So when we talk about hearing, music can be very calming. Tube was playing some, as she was saying, the good old Adventist music. It could be that, it could be classical music, but just find something to stimulate your senses. With touch, it could be, playing with a stress ball, or or doing some gardening where you're, you know, feeling the earth, you're touching things. Sight, this again, when you're being active and being active outdoors, you're taking in different sights, you're taking in different smells as you walk around, you know, or as you're doing gardening, as you're watering the lawn, you know, the smell of the earth as, you know, you water the grass. So take in those smells. The fifth one is to take up a relaxation practice. Now, when you look this up, a lot of places will suggest things like yoga and some form of meditation. But what I find, what a lot of people respond to, especially people who have a lot of anxiety, is what's called guided imagery, where, you know, you sit back and just talk yourself through a relaxing image in your mind. As Christians, a good relaxation practice can also be just meditating on God's word. You know, it could be the same verse all the time. It could be, you know, whatever the Spirit moves you to meditate upon. The sixth one is to prioritize leisure and contemplation. So when we are stressed, when we're highly anxious, it's easy to just sort of retreat into yourself and, you know, what's the point of doing anything fun? There's nothing fun that can be done. We're in lockdown. But we can find leisure in small things. It doesn't have to be the eating out somewhere, you know, just find something that would give you some sort of pleasure. And then with the contemplation, it's important that throughout the day, pay attention to what your self-talk is. What is the running commentary in your head? Because a lot of times you'll find that with anxiety, with depression, you find that our self-talk tends to be very negative. And that will just feed into the cycle. But most importantly, pay attention also to the positive things as you go about your day and write those down, because we tend to forget those. It's easy to ruminate on the negative and we forget the positive. So write those down so that you have a constant reminder of the positive things that are going on in your life. Eat a brain healthy diet. And I'm sure Dr. Davis is going to go into much more detail in this. I just said, you know, let's focus on our omega-3s. If you are a meat eater, it's your fatty fishes, salmon, trout, but you know, the other ones are nuts, so cashews, walnuts, almonds, and avocados, your leafy greens. Let's up our intake on those. The eighth one is sleep, 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 sleep. You will not believe how many people are not getting enough sleep. We tend to think that, you know, because we survive, you know, that, no, I'm good on my 5 hours of sleep, but there's a minimum that your brain needs for healthy functioning. And even, you know, 8 hours is what it should be. I think even as adults, we really need to be thriving for the 8 hours of sleep. Yes, you can get by on 6, but optimally you need a minimum of 8 hours of sleep. Those who are blessed to be able to take a nap during the day, those power naps are, you know, that's what I think they're called a power nap for a reason. I can count how many times in my life I've been able to take a power nap, because I'm one of those who just can't sleep during the day. This one, number 9, I find is very important. Find purpose and meaning. A lot of us just go through life and we don't even understand what our purpose is, what we're here for. And this is a big thing, especially as a Christian, that we know that we were put on this earth for God's purpose. And we need to find individually what God's purpose is for each of us. As you know, in living your purpose, you know, let's look at things like volunteering at a place. We have the center, I forget the name. I mean, you know, this is where, as a church, let's be proactive and not just put money into it, but go volunteer there. When you care for others, when you do something that takes the emphasis off yourself, you really do get, you know, a blessing from within. I mean, it's so rewarding. So just engage in work that makes you feel useful outside of your employment, because not many of us make money off of the things that are our purpose, you know. So if you're not doing that, then find ways to have meaning in your life. It brings a much deeper sense of meaning into your life. And the last one is knowing when to ask for help, to get professional help, and actually going out there and seeking it. So it's not everyone, because we're all going through this anxiety, some level of anxiety. Not all of us have a clinical level of anxiety, right? And the things that I mentioned here, I think if we actively took time to put those into practice, a lot of us would find that our anxiety does reduce. But for those for whom, you know, you find it almost stays the same, go out there and seek help. I'm not sure in South Africa what sort of help can be sought, but you know, the first place to start, the internet right now, at least we're blessed now to have the internet. And then in saying all of this, one of the things I think as the Adventist Church, we have a very, very good message. Our health message is super. And New Start, I don't know if we all know what New Start is, if we can remember this. You know, I think for me, being in the youth ministries, nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, fresh air, rest, and trust in God. If we lived that religiously, we would find that a lot of the issues that we have, both physically and emotionally, mentally, we could really reduce their impact in our lives. I guess that was it that I had for today.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lulu. And whilst that little that you shared is actually a lot, you know, part of adult learning, as we understand, is that we can hear a lot, but whether we do what we hear is another matter. And yet, if we were simply able to diligently apply the very things that you've shared, then there would be significant shifts in our own headspace. Right. So thank you very much for that practical, wise guidance that you've given to us. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next piece is just a couple of announcements that we wish to make. I think there's one that's not here, but obviously we're in the theme of Headspace right now, as we all know. We still are available for Bible studies. If you want to have Bible studies, please do connect with us on the Metro hotline. The number is right there before you. Last week, we had an amazing baptism. And it was great, personalized, what we call hyper-personalization seems to be the way in terms of baptism, because of the fact of the COVID. We had it at our home, and it was just great to see Ndaleka and the family present for her baptism, and we just had such a wonderful time. Also, I thought it would be useful to share as well that now that we're down to lockdown level 1, we will be introducing slowly, tentatively, physical church. It will be a hybrid approach where we're not going to necessarily stop our online activities as a church, but on the 16th and the morning of the 16th, we are going to be having our first church service in almost 2 years. You can say amen, just in case there are those out there who have been looking for that social interaction. It is coming on the 16th.
Yeah.
What's interesting about the 16th is that we're also going to be having a baby dedication. As babies. As we can appreciate, COVID has created a lot of connection, I think.
A lot of connection.
And we've had quite a few babies. I think how many? Probably about...
It could be seven, it could be 9.
I think it's about 9 babies that will be dedicated. We're going to be having an amazing praise and worship service. We're going to have also the message, and we're still going to have our WeGo live at 4 o'clock. So just to let it out there, and just for you to communicate with those in the Zoom platform, those who are on the Metro WhatsApp group, church will commence on the 16th of this month. Obviously, all social protocols will be observed within that context. In order to make church work, we know that part of that is our recognition of our giving. And there's one thing that I shared this morning that for me has significantly over the years of our lives reduced the notion of anxiety as to whether we will have enough. And that is as a result of faithful giving. There's something about faithful giving and recognizing that 1/10 of what you have does not belong to you, but belongs to God, who then turns around and then makes the promise, which we know very well in Malachi, that, as we are faithful to God, he will pour out of the windows of heaven a blessing that we cannot even contain at the time that he chooses. And this removes the need to think about how will we sustain ourselves, especially when we place our confidence and our trust in God. And so part of our giving, and also the means by which we're able to sustain the activities of the church, even as we go to the physical church on the 16th, is to do with our tithe and our offering. There are several ways in which we have the ability to do that. For those who are watching from an international perspective and wish to actually share and to give, there's what we call pay fast. For those of us who are here locally, we've got Zapper and SnapScan, and there's also direct bank transfer to the Metro Mission Bank account. And there you would simply put tithe or offering, and that would be clear for those who are needing to distribute it accordingly. So once again, please do give, because a willing heart that gives towards God's cause will always be abundantly blessed.
So Errol, I noticed we've got Metro Cares. How does Metro Cares work?
Well, since the advent of this pandemic, it was clear that a lot of stress points were, and I think as has been articulated already, people came into hardship, difficulties, financial loss. And whilst as a church we can't meet every need, one of the things we began to do was to ensure that if there was challenges with food, for instance, we would find ways to supply the food to anybody and anyone who was coming into that particular place. And then as the committee got together further, we began to see how we could assist people, whether it was school fees or whether it was rental. We are a place of last resort in one sense, but certainly where we can help, we seek to do that. And that is why Metro Cares is a critical component of our church, because we believe that it's not just about connecting people to God and growing in small groups, but also how do we serve as a church to our community. So all of these funds that you share in terms of your offering gets distributed into Metro Cares, or for the upkeep of this online platform, which is soon to be moving into a hybrid space where we're going to be having physical church also. Okay. With that being said, we want to move into our speaker. Pastor Sam Davis. Dr. Sam Davis is well known to Metro Mission. He used to be the pastor of Santon Seventh-day Adventist Church. He is Jamaican born, grew up in England. He presently lives in Spain. He has escaped the cold. And like myself, who grew up in England as well, having escaped the cold of England, he and his wife, now Rowena, live in Spain. Sam is deeply, and Pastor Sam is deeply connected to the naturopathic health approach. And we have had great insight that he has shared around the correlation between our diet and our health. And he has given great insights over the period of time that he has been connected into this. And we just want to welcome you, Pastor Sam, back again to Metro. And you know, for those of you who don't know Sam, what was interesting, and I say Sam simply because we have deep friendship, so forgive me if I'm not using the colloquial titles that are meant to be existing, but we just know him as Sam. And you know, when he really he'd been a vegetarian all of his life, but when he shared with us that he went for a health check and discovered, in spite of what he perceived to be a healthy lifestyle, he actually had the beginnings of heart disease. That was a major wake-up call for him to take a more deeper view on what true health looks and feels like. And that began a journey to which about a year ago, he graduated with his doctorate in naturopathy studies. And so, Pastor Sam, thank you so much for coming into this space once again for Metro Mission. We are really looking forward to your talk on the correlation between the gut and the brain. So for those of us on Zoom or Facebook or on YouTube, if you have any questions or comments as you are experiencing this presentation, please do put them into the chat or in Facebook or YouTube. We'll pick them up and ensure that we can actually then ask Pastor Sam the relevant questions. Over to you, Pastor Sam. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Errol and Paulette. It's a pleasure to be here with you once again this afternoon. And let me just say that should you guys invite me again, I'm thinking of transferring my membership to Metro because we.
Now you're talking. Now you're talking.
I'm delighted to be here with you this afternoon, and just want to thank Lulu for that presentation, because she's more or less summarized everything that I'm about to present. So it's delightful to be here. I'm going to take your prayer. Errol has the introduction, PPE for mind health. You know, during this time of the COVID-19, we have learned a lot of new language. You know, lockdown being one and PPE being another for those of us who are not medical folk. And these are really serious times in which we're living. And so let me just begin using this text from Philippians chapter 4, verses 4-7. The Apostle Paul says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." And so every day, stand guard at the gate of your mind. And, you know, as Christians, I've been told as Christians, we should not suffer from mental health challenges. And nowhere did this come home to me more starkly than while I was the president of South England Conference. We had a very tragic situation where one of our pastors took his life because of depression. And this really hit us very hard. And I remember walking into one of our large churches one Sabbath after that incident, and this brother came up to me and he said, "Pastor, what is this about, you know, people suffering with us Christians, suffering with this depression? We as Christians should not suffer with depression. We just need to pull up our socks and get on with it." you know, and so there was this brother very strident in his view that as Christians, we should not suffer from mental health challenges because the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And yet I'm very conscious that as Lulu spoke to us today, she was speaking to a Christian community and she was using the words anxiety and depression and so on. And so clearly we're not immune. You know, we are not immune. The current coronavirus 2019 pandemic, the worst global public health crisis in recent history, has caused unprecedented medical, social, economic upheaval across the globe and inflicted profound psychological pain on many people. And that includes Christians. You know, it doesn't matter what Christian persuasion you're from, what denomination, it has affected all of us. I don't know how many of you remember this case, Dr. Lorna Breen. She was the medical director of the emergency department of New York Presbyterian Allen Hospital. And she died in Charlottesville, Virginia, where she was staying with family, her father said in an interview. The victim was taken to VVA hospital for treatment, but later succumbed to self-inflicted injuries. Breen's father, Dr. Philip C. Breen, said she had described devastating scenes of the toll of the coronavirus on patients. She tried to do her job, but it killed her. And so here was someone very early on in the pandemic who was seeing the devastation that the virus was wreaking on the lives of individuals, and it became too much for her. She was at the front end, not the back end. She was at the front end as the director of emergency services, and she was just seeing people dying around her, and it became too much. She took her life. And then what about those who are locked down, you know, indoors again, as Lulu was taking the isolation? Previous epidemiological studies of similar outbreaks supported evidence of mental toll and increased suicide risk that should be monitored, and adequate resources should be made available to address the mental health challenges and related long-term ramifications. I remember I was with my daughter in the UK. We'd gone into the Bedford town centre and we drove past the car park, and she said, "Dad, when I came here just a few weeks ago, this place was just completely locked down in terms of traffic. There was a log jam." And she said, "We had a jumper. Somebody had jumped from the top of the car park, obviously because of the stress and anxiety associated with the lockdown from COVID-19. So notice Luke chapter 21, verse 26, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And so even though Christ has warned us as Christians, he has told us that men's hearts will be failing them for fear. And fear and anxiety suppresses the immune system, you know, and so one of the things that we ought to be conscious of is trying to have a positive outlook, not allowing the circumstances that all of us find ourselves in to take a toll on us mentally. Therefore, I say to you, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor yet for your body, what you shall put on. Is not the life more than meat and the body more than raiment? So Jesus is saying, do not borrow tomorrow's problems for today. Don't take on tomorrow's issues today. You know, and so that's what happens when we start to become anxious. We start to worry. And it then begins to have a detrimental effect on our health. a study of older people who cocooned during the COVID-19 pandemic has found almost 40% reported worse mental health, while more than 40% said there had been a decline in their physical health. Of the 150 people surveyed, almost 3 out of 4 said they were exercising less frequently or not at all. One of the things we found early during the pandemic was that the British government used a very practical approach. Even though there was a lockdown, they said people could go out for exercise once a day. Now, Rowena and I, in fact, Rowena was in the UK, I was here, and just before the lockdown, she was able to join me here in Spain. And so we decided that we would spend a week at the flat up in Alicante, and we thought maybe the same rules applied. Even though there was a lockdown, we decided that we would go out for a walk, and we were going to go to the supermarket to buy some stuff. This was a Sunday morning, and we were going to take the scenic route. And so we set off, and we came to a bridge that we're very familiar with going across. And there in front of us was 2 policemen standing akimbo on the bridge, looking at us, and we could not turn back because they had seen us. And so we just kept walking towards them, and they stopped us. Where are you going? Told them we were going to the supermarket. Well, you're not supposed to be out. There is nobody should be out at this moment. Now, remember, this is in the backdrop of Spain losing thousands of people up to this point during the pandemics. In fact, Spain was leading the rest of Europe in terms of the amount of death. And so there was just this fear. And they said, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. We need to take your name. Where do you live? And blah, 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 blah. And so, of course, we were very concerned that we were going to be hauled up in court for breaking lockdown rules. But, for what they were saying to us, you cannot leave the tiny flat that you were in. And those were the rules. You cannot leave. And so we decided that if those were the conditions, that you've got to stay within that tiny space for however long, we were not going to stay with that. And we came back the following morning. We just got in the car and came to our farm, where we've got abundance of space. But can you imagine, and I know very well what that can be doing to somebody's headspace when you are cocooned for so long and cannot go out. So experts have said that the damage to children's mental health could last for years, with a large-scale funding increase called for. And this again was in the UK, and in the recent budget, they've been battling with the government for greater funds for children who were affected and their education set back because of the lockdown. And the government has not come up with the amount of money being called for by educational institutions. And then, of course, we're aware that the intimate partner violence was one of the things that really took off during the pandemic. What was bad became a lot worse under COVID-19, and because it was messing with people's head. Frontline workers are very worried and stressed out about the potential of contracting diseases. And I don't know what it's like in South Africa, but in the UK and many European countries, they've moved to a place where doctors are no longer seeing patients face to face, unless it's really, really an emergency, but everything has now moved to online. So frontline workers were very worried about going to work and then passing the virus on to family members. There was the stress of them seeing so many people die, as related in the Breen case, and the stress of families separated from dying loved ones. And this was one of the worst things during the early stages of the pandemic. You have a loved one who's gone to hospital. You're not allowed to go and see them, and they are dying by themselves. And this really did take a toll on people's mental health. And then stress can lead to anxiety and depression. So nurses and physicians are affected by a variety of stressors in their workplace because of the responsibility to provide health and treatment to patients. They are on the front line, and they, you know, so notice here that the rate of burnout. Other studies report 7.4% of nurses absent from work each week due to burnout or disability or stress. So it's real. So what are some of the key drivers in terms of the fear factor, fear of loss of income, business failure, business and bills and commitments? So people are worrying about all of these things. Worry induces stress and anxiety. And then the majority of COVID-19 cases in sub-Saharan Africa are found in South Africa. Very, very pertinent for today. So where 1/3 of young people are not in employment, education, or training. And as the world continues to fight the COVID-19 virus, an increasing volume of studies are analyzing and trying to predict the consequences of the pandemic on the economy and the physical and mental health. So all around the world, people are concerned about the toll that the virus is taking on their mental health. And that, beloved, includes all of us. No, Christians are not immune from what's happening. None of us are immune to the mental health challenges from COVID-19. Other factors leading to anxiety and depression are the death of a loved one, loss of employment, diagnosis of a terminal illness, relationship breakup or a divorce, betrayal by a partner, the threat of eviction from your home during this time where you cannot work, you cannot pay the rent. And so these are all issues that if you do not have a strong faith, can indeed push certain people over the edge. So every day, stand guard at the gate of your mind. What can we do during these very, very difficult times? In the advert, I mentioned the fact that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Also, it would happen, the secret to good brain health is also through the stomach and not discem. I do need to repeat that, beloved. You know, the secret to good brain health is also through the stomach and not discem. Hippocrates has said all diseases begin in the stomach, and I will be referring a couple of times to my dissertation, which was on this whole history of diseases beginning in the stomach. It was a comparative study with Ellen White's study that 90%, Ellen White's statement rather, that 90% of all disease begins in the mind. So 2/3 of the body's immune system lies in the gut. In many ways, your gut bacteria are as vast and as mysterious as the Milky Way. About 100 trillion bacteria, both good and bad, live inside your digestive system, and collectively, they're known as the gut microbiota. So the stomach has been described as the second brain. The GI tract and the brain actually come from the same part of the developing baby or embryo. And as a result, the digestive tract and brain have many similar nerve endings and chemicals that relay signals and messages. The brain and the gut are connected. And that's not by accident, beloved, that's by design. The good doctor here is saying that the GI tract and the brain actually come from the same part of developing baby embryo. Okay, that's the science. But the truth is that we were fearfully and wonderfully made by God, and this was intentional on his part. So it's not known that, it is now known that the benefits of the human microbe symbiosis can be extended to human mental health. And in recent years, evidence has shown that the gut-brain axis, or the bidirectional communication between the resident microbes of the GI tract and the brain, plays a key role in maintaining brain health. So this is the very reason why we're here and we're talking about this today, the role that the stomach plays in terms of brain health. So there is one big visceral nerve embedded in your gut, that's the vagus nerve, and researchers revealed that up to 90% of its fibers carry information from the gut to the brain rather than the other way around. In other words, the brain interprets gut signals as emotions, so you really should trust your gut. Now, I'm going to share with you something that happened to me a few years ago as I began my lifestyle change journey. I was preaching in one of the churches in the UK, and it was an afternoon session such as this. And at the end of I'd been there all day, and at the end of the presentation, I'm standing at the door, shaking hands, and there's this very strange feeling in my stomach. And, this then traveled to my head. And I said to Roina, please, I need to sit down, get me to a chair so that I can sit down because I'm feeling very faint. And as she was taking me to the chair, I said, Roina, I'm going to pass out. So you need to get me to the car because I don't want to faint in front of these members. So please get me to the car. And so Ro begins to take me to the car. And the next thing I know, the lights have gone out. You know, the lights are out and everybody's around me. This is, I don't think I was out for very long, maybe 30 seconds or whatever, but I'm on the floor. And of course, people are very worried. And the ambulance was called. They took me to A&E, had me checked over. They did the ECG, checked the heart. They took the blood samples, everything. And after a couple of hours, they said, we can't find anything wrong with you. There's nothing wrong. And they sent me home. Fine. About a year later, the same thing happens again. I'm conducting a health crusade this time. I'm doing a health evangelistic crusade in one of the churches, and it's lunchtime. I'm standing at the door, I'm shaking hands, and again there's this feeling that begins in the gut and travels up to the brain. And I said to her, I'm not feeling good. I need to go and sit down. And this time there was a doctor in the house, and the elder of the church was a doctor. And so I said to him, look, I need to go to the bathroom. And he says to me, when you go to the bathroom, do not lock the door. And I say to myself, why shouldn't I lock the door? He can't tell me that. So I knew the reason why he had told me not to lock the door, but I went to the toilet, locked the door, having finished the toilet, got up, opened the door and washing my hands. And the next thing I know, beloved, they're picking me up off the floor. They are picking me up off the floor, and I was disobedient. The doctor had told me, do not lock the door. And I'm just so thankful that what happened did not happen while I was still locked in the bathroom. But the point that I'm making is that this thing happened from the gut, began in the gut, traveled up to my head, and then the lights went out. And again, the same thing happened, took me to the hospital, checked me over. And remember that I am promoting a healthy lifestyle. This was not good for the new business, telling people come to the farm where you can pass out like me. It really was very embarrassing. And so they took me to the hospital again. And the doctor said, there's nothing wrong. We cannot find anything wrong with you. And that's where I was going to leave it. But Roina says, no, I'm not having this. She said, you've got to go to the hospital. And I'm saying, no, it's all right. But she was very, very insistent. I've made you an appointment. You're going to the hospital. So went to the hospital and they did an endoscopy that's putting a camera down through in the gastric tract just to find out what's going on. And they put me under anesthetic. And when I came out, the doctor said that your stomach is highly, in fact, chronically inflamed. Now, when he told me that, that was no surprise. That was no surprise to me at all, because I've been abusing my body for years, eating late at night, eating between meals, eating all the wrong foods, and so on. So when he told me that my stomach was chronically inflamed, that came as no surprise. They could not tell me why it was that this sensation went from the gut up to the brain. And so the doctor suggested that I then go to see a neurologist, and that's where I knocked it on the head. Decided that I wasn't going to do that because I knew that it had something to do with what had happened to the abuse of my body over the years, and that proved right. In fact, I later realized that what was happening with me was that the abuse through which I had placed my stomach through constantly eating all of the wrong things, eating and drinking at the same time, I had now changed that lifestyle. So the body had become accustomed to the abuse and had adapted. Now that I was changing to a much healthier way of living, not eating between meals, not eating late at night, not eating and drinking, the change, what occurred with me was the healing crisis. I had a healing crisis, and since my body has become accustomed now to the new way of living and eating, it's never happened again. But that was a worrying time. And what I did go to the internet looking for answers and found that there were others who had experienced the very same thing. So notice here, if you look on the left, the gut microbiota on the left has an influence on the neurotransmitters, stress, anxiety, mood, behavior, all of those things, depending on the quality of your microbiome. That will also then affect your mood and your behavior, and then the influence on motility, secretion, nutrient delivery, microbial balance, and so on. So the gut microbiota has an influence on brain neurotransmitters, which can affect our moods, cause stress and anxiety. The brain also communicates with the gut microbiome. Hormones from the pineal gland that affect our moods can also have an impact on our ability to get a good night's sleep, as referred to by Lulu earlier. The intestinal microbiome produces many of the neurotransmitters such as dopamine, serotonin, and GABA. It is not an underestimation, therefore, to say that the intestinal microbiome and the gut-brain axis are crucial to our health. So with the microbiota making up over 90% of the cells in our bodies, we are in fact more bacteria than human. Writing of her own health challenges, Alana Collin describes just how powerful a role these microbes play, not just in our physical well-being, but also in our mental health. And she's written a book called 10% Human. My own health troubles were the tip of the iceberg. I learned of the emerging scientific evidence that disruptions to the body's microbes were behind gastrointestinal disorders, allergies, autoimmune diseases, and even obesity. And it wasn't just physical health that could be affected, but mental health as well, from anxiety and depression to obsessive compulsive disorder and autism. That's from her book, 10% Human. So we can all identify with butterflies in the stomach. We recognize that very often you're hungry, but you cannot eat because you're going through emotional turmoil. You know, I'm upset. In fact, it is recommended that you don't eat when you're upset because it has a negative impact on your digestion. And so there is this gut-brain connection. Researchers revealed that antibiotics have the potential to decimate gut bacteria. That means that the round you took for your sinus infection could have cut your gut flora to 1/10 of its previous level. Not by 1/10, but to 1/10. That's a 90% wipeout. Beloved, that's someone here said that taking antibiotics is like dropping a nuclear bomb inside your gut. You are wiping out, decimating that gut microbiome, which is so important to your physical health, but also to your mental health. And, you know, one of the things that the medical fraternity don't tell us is, you know, you will go to the doctor and he'll say, well, I'm putting you on a round of antibiotics, but that is not followed by, you need to take good probiotic to replace the gut flora that's about to be wiped out. They don't tell you that. And that really is a shame. And sometimes you're not just given one round of antibiotics, but 2 rounds of antibiotics, which is just wiping out your gut microbiome and leaving you open to all kinds of infections. And this is especially during this time of COVID-19, when you need your immune system to be working at its best. So what are the factors that affect gut microbiome? Many factors have now been identified to affect the gut microbiome, and as shown here, an individual's genetics, the types of drugs or antibiotics that they're taking. And remember, I've just pointed out that if you have to take antibiotics, then always make sure that you're taking a good probiotic to make sure that you're replacing those good gut bacteria. Hygiene, physical activity, and other factors all play a role in maintaining or if change, altering the gut microbiome. So lifestyle is a factor, diet is most certainly a factor, and so all of these things will play into your whether you've got good microbiome and how that is then having an impact on your brain. Okay, so depression is rooted in the frontal lobe. The effects of lifestyle and nutrition on our frontal lobe are, and this is Dr. Neil Nedley speaking, in my opinion, ultimately more important than their effects on heart disease, cancer, osteoporosis, kidney failure, and all the other degenerative diseases combined. We need to make it a top priority to protect our brain because our quality of life originates here. So we're talking about the gut microbiome. We're talking about how important it is to look after the gut microbiome, and then we're talking about the fact that we are suffering from all these different mental health challenges. And Nedley is saying that the effects of our lifestyle and nutrition on our frontal lobe are, in my opinion, ultimately more important than their effects on heart disease, cancer, osteoporosis, kidney failure, you name it. So protecting the brain is so much more important than anything else, because if you ain't got a brain, you've got nothing, right? You know, the brain is the capital, and I'll come back to that. Yeah, here we are. The brain is the capital of the body, the seat of all the nervous forces and mental action. The nerves proceeding from the brain control the body. By the brain nerves, mental impressions are conveyed to all the nerves of the body as telegraph wires, and they control the vital action of every part of the system. All the organs of motion are governed by the communications they receive from the brain. The brain is so powerful an organ. Every other organ is subject to the brain. It is the capital of the body. And so if the brain's not functioning right, then everything else is out of whack. And so there's kind of a vicious circle, because it is the brain, it is in the mind that you make the decision to eat healthy foods, which then feeds that gut microbiome, which then comes back up to make sure that the brain is in good working order. And if the brain is not functioning well, then you're in trouble. So I've got somebody I'm talking to right now, and this person has been diagnosed with schizophrenia. This has been through bad lifestyle choices, using narcotics, using these things that should not be using, and so has got a terrible paranoia and so on. And I'm saying, consequently, this person was in hospital for a few months, now home. And I'm saying to him, you cannot just spend your life in your room, getting up, eating all the wrong foods. I can help you. You need to change the cycle. You need to change the narrative of your life. You can take control, but it's very, very, very difficult. So when the brain has been damaged, having the will to then make those changes becomes very, very difficult. And so the frontal lobe is the crown of the brain. That's where our spirituality lies. The Apostle Peter says, be sober, be vigilant. This is where the battle takes place, in the frontal lobe. Morality and the will all reside there in the frontal lobe. And so when we talk about diseases of the frontal lobe, mania, as I just referred to, obsessive compulsive disorder, appetite increase, depression, all of these are to be found there. And so let's just have a look at some of the drugs negatively impacting frontal lobe. Asthma medication, beta agonists, tranquilizers, painkillers, antihistamines, alcohol, nicotine, blood pressure medication, antidepressants, cold and allergy medication, sleeping tablets, caffeine, and the sources from Dr. Neil Nedley's book prove positive. And so when you have a look at all these things, beloved, you can understand why it was that when Jesus was offered the painkiller on the cross, he said, no, thank you. I need to have that frontal lobe functioning at its optimal. I need to be aware of what's going on. And so we do not really realize that when we're taking all of these drug medication, remember, I believe I've shared with you before that every drug that you take, there is a side effect. Okay, Eli Lilly said it's not a drug if it does not have side effects. So all of these things will have side effects that having an impact, and you need this frontal lobe to be working at its optimum so that you can make critical decisions in critical moments. And if it's not functioning at its best because it's suppressed by painkillers and whatever. And so I guess here what I'm saying to you is that it's always good to look for organic alternative that God has given to us. And they do exist. They do very much exist, and we need to try and find them. But again, I would say, please do not interfere with your medication. If you're on medication, this is not about telling you to stop taking your medication, because that needs to be done with professional guidance. Okay, so coming back to that gut-brain connection, caffeine upsets the delicate balance of nerve transmission in the brain. Consequently, it is not surprising that caffeine is an agent that raises dopamine levels, increases the risk of certain mental illnesses, even though it may appear harmless on the surface. Now, let me say this, beloved. I have worked at the highest levels within the church, and I've gone out with leaders. We've sat down at dining tables, and people are ordering coffee, they're ordering tea, they're ordering caffeine. I know, I have seen it, I have been there, and we have moved a long way away from the blueprint that God has given to us, because we know better. And it's so trendy. Many of us will go to these trendy cafes that you have there in Santon, and we'll sit down to our caffeine drinks. I don't know if it's a Costa coffee or whatever it is, but God has something better in mind for us. So what's in your caffeine? So here we have the caffeine content in milligrams, all of these things. And even if it's decaffeinated coffee, the decaffeinated process that it goes through, there are much better alternatives that you can find on the market. And many of us, the chocolate, hot chocolate is the go-to drink for Seventh-day Adventists, and notice that it also contains caffeine. So caffeine has been linked with anxiety, neurosis, psychosis, a state where a person loses touch with reality, and schizophrenia, the so-called split personality disorder. This is from Dr. Nedley's book, Depression, The Way Out. Coffee has been implicated in increased dopamine levels in the brain. This action is worrisome. Some of the most profound psychiatric diseases, such as schizophrenia, appear to be due in part due to excess dopamine. In fact, standard drug therapy for these serious mental disorders involves the use of dopamine blocking agents. So the two most common forms of malnutrition causing anxiety relate to a deficiency of some of the B vitamins and to the excessive consumption of processed foods, processed and refined foods. So coming back to the gut microbiome, Dr. Pauling is saying that part of the problem that is impacting on one's mental health is the deficiency of some of the B vitamins, but also the consumption of refined foods. And I don't need to spell out what the refined foods are, whether it's the white rice, the white flour in any of its forms, sugars, all of these things, any processed foods where they're lacking nutrition, you are not feeding that gut microbiome, giving it the very best nutrition that can then send that nutritive factor up to the brain. Okay, so let me just talk very quickly about the anxiety-related illnesses, because notice he says two of the most common forms of malnutrition causing anxiety. Okay, so I'm just going to list out some of the anxiety-related illnesses: social anxiety, phobias, panic disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. Surprisingly, the quality of your nutrition, the quality of what goes into the gut will have an impact on how well you navigate your way through these crises. Okay, all can be overcome through lifestyle changes. So constant stimulation of the senses shuts down the analytical processes of the mind. And I know that during this time of COVID-19, our television viewing has gone up. It shuts down the analytical processes of the mind. It's so easy, when you're in this almost comatose states to reach for the popcorn, to reach for the crisp, to reach for those foods that are comforting foods, but not really foods that are feeding the brain. Again, Lulu mentioned, she mentioned the 8 laws of healthy exercise. Human and other animal studies demonstrate that exercise targets many aspects of brain function and has broad effects on overall brain health. The benefits of exercise have been best defined for learning and memory protection. Okay, so again, those studies are out there, very well known. The use of natural remedies from Sister White requires an amount of care and effort that many are not willing to give. And this comes back down to the strength of will. Do I have the willpower to do what I need to do in order to protect my brain, to protect my immune system? Nature's process of healing and upbuilding is gradual, and to the impatient it seems slow. The surrender of hurtful indulgences requires sacrifice, but in the end it will be found that nature, untrammeled, does her work wisely and well. Those who persevere in obedience to her laws will reap the reward in health of body and health of mind. This is from the Ministry of Healing, page 127. So these are very, very important. And Neil Nedley is very clear that there are many people who are in their graves because they lacked the willpower to really turn things around. Okay, serotonin is key to brain health, especially those who are suffering from depression and anxiety disorders. Many of the drugs given to patients are to boost their serotonin levels. Serotonin is an essential fatty acid, meaning that the body does not make it, and therefore, because the body doesn't make it, we've got to find it in some other source. Omega-3 fats are also essential to brain health and function. Tryptophan is an essential amino acid. Your body cannot produce it, so it must be supplied through diet. So when you take in foods with tryptophan, the body converts the tryptophan into serotonin, which is food for the brain. Foods containing tryptophan, such as pumpkin seeds, tofu, and sesame seeds, demonstrate just how interrelated gut and brain are. It is interesting to note that anxiety-related illnesses can often be related to a poor diet. Anxiety-related illnesses are social anxiety, phobias, panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, traumatic stress disorder. All the foregoing disorders are psychiatric illnesses where one will invariably be referred to a counselor or a psychiatrist. However, it's interesting to note that many of these disorders can be overcome by diet and lifestyle changes. All right, and that's from a quote in my dissertation. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, these are medications that gradually increase the amount of serotonin, a neurotransmitter in the brain. So this is what those people who are going through depression, when you go to the doctor, I don't know what the names are for you in South Africa. We have Valium and other things like that's given. And here are foods that with the tryptophan content of foods, and I've taken this from Dr. Neil Nedley's book. So I have here in whole milk, this is in milligrams to 100 grams, black-eyed cowpeas, 267 milligrams, black walnuts, 290, almonds, 322 milligrams, sesame seeds, 358, gluten flour, roasted pumpkin seeds, 578, flax seeds ground, 644, and then tofu, 747, way out there, tofu. So just think about what you're doing to the brain, you know, in terms of the good things when you're eating the walnuts, the almonds, the sesame seeds. Let me just say this about sesame seeds and flax seeds. You must always grind these seeds. You know, if you have a small coffee grinder and you, not for coffee, beloved, not for coffee, but you've got that coffee grinder to grind your seeds. So never take the sesame seeds whole, because it will just pass straight through you. The same with the flax seeds. But if you would take the flax seeds and grind them, grind the sesame seeds, then you are getting the full benefit of these seeds. Omega-3 fats, plant foods containing your omega-3s, flaxseed, walnuts, soybean oil, spinach, sesame seeds, avocado, almonds, strawberries, blueberries, turnips, banana, sweet potatoes, apples. Just look and look again, way out in front, flaxseed is, and then you've got walnuts kind of shaped with the like the brain, and look how good walnuts are for the brain. So there you have some plant foods that are containing omega-3s. And then I thought, just to be fair and to be balanced, I would put there the omega-3s that you can get from the content of fish. I grew up in the UK from West Indian parents, and my parents would give us cod liver oil, one of the most ghastly things I've ever tasted. Never did like it, but they really did believe in it. And I can understand now why it is that they were giving it to us. And I'm sure that Paulette and Errol will be able to identify similarly. But notice the drumfish, tuna, rainbow trout, freshwater bass, pink salmon, herring, all of these you can get your omega-3 fats from. But guess what? They got their benefit of the omega-3s from plants, from eating seaweed. They didn't get it from eating other animals. They got it from plants. The other thing I should tell you about as you think about getting your omega-3 from fish is that there's no unpolluted water on the planet. All our waters are polluted, and then there's the process of biomagnification because the animal is living in the sea. All the pesticides, even though they may declare the water safe, the fact that the fish lives and breathes in that water, then all the pesticides and the metals and so on are then biomagnified within the body. So you're getting a greater concentration of that pesticide from eating the flesh of the fish. And so my advice would be to seek other sources. And there are plenty, as you can see, plenty of plant-based sources from which you can get your omega-3s from. And of course, the fish got it from eating seaweed. So remember, if you're considering, and this is a very, very powerful statement from Dr. Neil Nedley. Remember, if you're considering any herb or medication as a means of alleviating mild to moderate depressive symptoms, lifestyle measures should always be your first option. When I read that, I was just blown away because here is a top physician, and if you're interested in finding Dr. Nedley's methods or methodology, I'm sure you can find him on YouTube. He's a well sought after speaker around the world. He's one of our top Adventist physicians. He's also head of the Weimar Institute, and in fact, I went to Amazon and his material is sold out. But here is Dr. Neil Nedley saying that if you are considering herbal medication or any other type of medication for mental health challenges, always lifestyle should be your first option. So through the right exercise of the will, an entire change may be made in the life. By yielding up the will to Christ, we ally ourselves with divine power. We receive strength from above to hold us steadfast. A pure and noble life, a life of victory over appetite and lust, is possible to everyone who will unite his weak wavering human will to the omnipotent, unwavering will. And so, will of God. So I recognize, beloved, that it's very, very difficult to do the lifestyle change by yourself. And very often you've got to cry out to God and ask the Lord to help you to make that change, because very often we try to do it by ourselves and we fail. Notice, in my opinion, I quoted this at the beginning, in my opinion, Nedley says, the effects of lifestyle and nutrition on our frontal lobe are ultimately more important than their effects on heart disease, cancer, osteoporosis, kidney failure, because if the brain is gone, everything else is gone. If you're not looking after that brain, if you've got a weak will, if you're not able to make sound decisions about your nutrition, then it's over. So, just before I close out, folic acid or folate deficiency can be a direct cause of depression. I found this a much more common cause of depression in meat eaters, sorry about the spelling there, than in vegetarians. People with an omega-3 deficiency seem to have similar depression rates, whether they are meat eaters or vegetarians. Depression, the way up by Dr. Neil Nedley. So here's sources of folate. So again, I would say this: make sure that you're eating a rounded vegetarian, vegan diet, plant-based diet. Look at this, look at the wide range, the variety of things. Chickpeas, folate 1,114. Beloved, if you like hummus, then here is a very good source, again, of your folate. Black-eyed cowpeas, lentils, red kidney beans, okra, navy beans, spinach, mustard greens, Spanish peanuts, fresh orange juice, sirloin steak. Boy, look how low down that is. So, if you are using plant-based foods, and that is my recommendation, that you look at your lifestyle and you change your lifestyle, making sure you're getting a broad spectrum of the plant-based foods and seeds and nuts. Every day, stand guard at the gate of your mind. The human family have followed in a course of disobedience like Eve, have become beguiled by Satan in disregard to prohibitions that God has made, flattering themselves that the consequences would not be as fearful as had been apprehended. The human family have violated the laws of health and have run to excess in almost everything. Disease has been steadily increasing. The cause has been followed by the effect. And so beloved, as I talk about nutrition, let me just say this: giving the gut the right food is not enough. And I think Lulu has already expressed very, very clearly, if you're putting the right food, the right nutrition into the gut, but you're not exercising, you're drinking Fanta, you're drinking sugary drinks, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not getting out in the sunlight, enough sunlight for your vitamin D3, you're not getting enough rest. It's a package. The circadian rhythm, if you're following Dr. Neil Nedley's method, then you've got to put that circadian rhythm back in place. So we're talking about the nutrition, we're talking about exercise, we're talking about going to bed at a good enough time so that you're getting enough rest during the night. We're talking about trust in God, all of the whole, the whole package, fresh air, temperance, all of it. It cannot just be that we're going to get the nutrition right and you believe that everything is going to fall in place. The nutrition is just one aspect of it, but a very, very important aspect. So in cases of depression, always seek professional help. Consider lifestyle factors as part of the recovery plan. And here again, I would remind you of Dr. Neil Nedley's words, always look at nutrition and lifestyle first, working with your practitioner. And here I've reminded you of using the circadian rhythm. Trust in the divine healing providence of God. And so in conclusion, there is a very clear link between brain and gut, on several levels. And it is an established fact. And the quality of the food that you eat has a direct impact on the gut microbiome, which in turns affects your mood and your brain health. Not just your food, but there has to be a change in lifestyle. So where mental health challenges are concerned, always try lifestyle first. And so as I close, beloved, let me just share with you some of the things that you can be doing. I would like to invite Rowena to be here with me because she is the one who cooks the food in our house. I just eat it. Here is walnuts. Remember what we talked about, the goodness that there are in walnut as a brain food, walnut and date granola. This is what we had for breakfast this morning. Chia seed pudding layered with pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, flax seeds. That's a powerhouse. Just right there, that's a powerhouse of goodness, food for the brain, mango, figs, and plums. Scrambled tofu, this is excellent. I'm sure that Paulette knows how to do this, but you saw again that tofu was way out there in front of everything else in terms of tryptophan content. Oatmeal, oat and walnut burger. This is something that Rowena does regular here. Carrot and walnut muffins, banana and walnut muffin. The reason why I'm showing you these things is that I'm saying we're not taking the fun out of life. We're not taking the joy out of life. You can still feed that microbiome with some good stuff and still enjoy good living. Cornbread, 2 cups of cold, Rowena will talk more about these things. Walnut and almond roast. And then in terms of the nut milks that you can have, here is a range. Pumpkin, you can use your pumpkin seeds to make milk, sunflower seeds, sesame seeds, cashew milk. There are so many, and because we live on a farm with so many almonds, we use almonds for making our milk. Tofu yogurt, I had this just this past week. Again, you can see the goodness of the tryptophan in the yogurt, and we can tell you how to do these things, hummus and so on. So, beloved, there is just an array of things that you can be using, and I'm sure. If you want more information, but I would also suggest that you go to the YouTube, the University of YouTube, where you will find a minefield of information. There's nothing there that you will not be able to find. So that's just this presentation, and I hope you found this beneficial today.
Amazing,
so great.
Absolutely amazing.
Wow.
But I'll have my questions after Rowena has spoken, because I see she's getting in there, which would suggest Pastor Sam, she's saying ease over because she's going to take over now.
Really, I don't know why he's called me to be here, because he's just shown you some of the things that we've done. There's nothing for me to say, really.
No, I called Rowena because she makes a lot of cakes. Using these, and I don't know if Ro wanted just to say something about the methodology in her cake making. That's the reason why I've asked Ro to just say something on that for us.
The methodology on my cake making, there's so many different things. I mean, he's spoken a lot about seeds. We use flax seeds and chia seed instead of eggs. We use a lot of nuts. We use a lot of almonds because we've got a lot of almonds on the farm. We do use raw olive oil because we have the olives. Tofu.
Yeah. So the tofu yogurt was just putting adding almonds to almond milk to the tofu, blending it, and then just adding your fruits and a little sweetness, and you've got your own yogurt. Plenty of tryptophan there, brain food.
Yeah.
No, that's great stuff. You know what's interesting about what you shared, and we've been on a journey ourselves in terms of some of the these health practices, and certainly we've experienced the benefits of them. One of the things that I'm really concerned about relative to the correlation between the microbiome and the brain, and the correlations between the extent to which you are ensuring that the healthy microbiome exists. And then you talked about the antibiotics and how the antibiotics are the equivalent of a nuclear bomb that goes off, and you destroy 90% of the actual microbiome health and function, which is critical for the actual protection of the immune system. Now, I wanted to just check, because I didn't see it in your presentation, around what are the natural replacements for probiotics? What are the natural probiotics that we should be looking at taking in the eventuality that one is forced to find oneself in the situation of taking antibiotics?
Well, I don't know. I think I know that in Africa, you guys do a lot of fermented foods. So, so the fermented food will help. Sauerkraut, so miso. These are some of the natural.
There's one you can make with soya milk, lemon, and a bit of honey. Just blend that. Yeah, and that's also quite natural. Yeah, but the ones you buy in the capsules, they're also all right if you get good ones.
So I go for the, if you can find a probiotic with in about 20 million cultures, and so whatever you can find, a good probiotic is always. We use Biocult. I found that on Amazon. And it's always good to make sure, and especially if you have been through a course of antibiotics, it's imperative that you're able to
right. So Paul has actually created one.
We've started to create our own yogurt because we are dairy free, and one of the things that we make is a coconut yogurt, and then we literally just make it. I put it in the oven overnight, and I use the probiotics. And then in the morning, we have our own yogurts, and we just keep it in a glass jar, and it lasts the entire week. And so the entire family is now appreciating this coconut yogurt that we make naturally.
Yeah. There's a question that's been asked, how would you rate oat milk in comparison to the seed-based milks you mentioned in your presentation?
I think they're all good, Errol. They're all good. So
especially if you make them.
If you're making your own, so obviously, if you're taking it off the shelf, it will have some form of preservative in it. But if you can buy the oats, or if you can get the seeds and make it yourself, then that's far more desirable. And and the other thing is that you guys are living in a place where you can buy coconuts in abundance. There are so many of these wonderful things that you can buy that we really don't appreciate. My heart longs to be where you are, my brother.
Definitely.
We buy coconuts here in the market, and that it's in the shop, but it's been there too long. So, but to be in a place where you know that. From the time of picking to the time of sale is just a few days. It's wonderful.
Right. And I see that Gail is saying garlic, oregano oil can also help when ill. GABA is good food for mood swings, and sapia and tissue salts as well. So those are some of the things. So Sam, if somebody here is finding themselves. You mentioned before that you're dealing with somebody who is potentially has maybe has bipolar or maybe schizophrenia. I know here we call it bipolar, or maybe they found that through an abusive lifestyle, they are finding themselves, maybe they're getting the feedback from their environment, or they're feeling in themselves that something is not okay. So the person who is already on medication, we would say, do not stop your medication unless it is in a consultative basis. But if I am not on medication, but I know something's wrong with me, I am down, I've got mood swings, maybe I'm hearing voices, maybe my family are telling me, wait a minute, something's wrong. Are you saying to me that through lifestyle and rest that I might be able to turn around how I'm feeling?
Well, I think first of all, in a situation like that, Paulette, always an individual should seek professional help, and part of that professional help is if they've got people around them who can help them to make those lifestyle changes. So we're looking at, because very often the very organ that needs to make those decisions is suppressed. So the frontal lobe is not functioning properly. The ability to make decisions about the right kind of nutrition is compromised. And so it has to be somebody, maybe a parent, a husband, a wife, or whoever, who is able to help that individual beginning to take the steps in terms of nutrition. But we're not just talking about nutrition, we're talking about exercise. We're talking about going to bed at the right time. We're talking about locking off the Netflix account and all that sort of thing. So to make sure that you're really giving the brain the very best that you can in order to recover in a situation like that.
No, thank you very much. I think there's one other comment I'd like to just make, and obviously, as you talked about the neurotransmitters, which are essential for the capacity of the brain, frontal lobe, the ability to make the right type of decisions, and its correlation to your sort of overall mental health. And then you brought in the context of caffeine, and obviously the effects that caffeine has. Now, if somebody's watching this and they're saying, but wait a minute, caffeine is an acceptable drug that is well used socially. And secondly, it does provide a degree of what we'd call it, from what I've heard, where it provides the lift. I think that's the word, is the lift. And that lift is a very essential part. What would I do to replace the caffeine, but still with something natural that would provide a similar lift?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a very good question, Errol. And I think that we've become far too reliant on the artificial lift. So some people cannot begin their day unless they've had that coffee or whatever. And it was very interesting that I'm running the detox program here, and I had a coffee drinker who went through a really rough time. You just detoxing, getting the caffeine out of the system. And I think that we need to do things slowly, but begin to replace these artificial things. We're talking, when you're taking in natural sugars. So we're talking about the mango, the figs, whatever the natural fruits that you'll have. These are slow energy releases and the oats. So you're taking in a lot of good nutrition, which is releasing energy slowly throughout the day, rather than giving you that artificial spike. So we need to go back to feeding that gut microbiome the way God intended it. There will be enough to keep you there through the day. One of the reasons why we're in trouble is because our governmental leaders, our politicians, are standing up around the bar, drunk out of their brain, high on caffeine, and then they make decisions that affect our lives. Lord,
exactly.
help.
That's right. Yes, indeed. I agree with you. No, thank you for that. I think that's it, because what I'm trying to get at is a replacement picture to what exists, because it's one thing to turn around and say, stop drinking it, but what do we replace it with? And I think that what you've shared, obviously is really good, that, it's about resetting the body's natural way in which it's functioning, which for some would be representative of withdrawal, but then replacing it with the right foods that will allow it to then become used to a new and natural form of energy. I must confess, for myself, one of my greatest sources of energy is first thing in the morning, because I only drink water. That's the only thing our family drinks. We only drink water. But I find that the greatest source of energy for me in the morning is a liter of water. Put 1.5 liters of water in me, and my body's like up and running. I'm ready to go. But that didn't just arrive. It was 10, 15 years ago, I was at a conference where someone talked about the power of water as an energy source. I couldn't believe it, given the fact that I was taking juices, I was taking, the sweet drinks and so forth. But over time, coming off that, replacing it with water, I've found that it has become a habitual practice and gives a tremendous amount of energy.
God must have got it wrong, man, because we should be taking the energy booster drinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Indeed. There's a question. Sorry, Sam, you were going to say?
No, that's fine.
No, and so let me just say, I see a question here.
That's right.
With the change of lifestyle, can I reverse the high blood pressure? One of the things that let me just say, the body is not inclined to agree with you. So because the body has become accustomed to caffeine, it's like a drug user, the body adapts to that drug, it assimilates it, and it becomes used to it. So when you try to take it away, it then reacts negatively, and that's what you call those withdrawal symptoms. And similarly, when you begin to make the lifestyle changes like I did, I had the fainting spells because my body had become used to the abuse. So when you decide that you want to change, your body is not going to agree, want to come along with you, but that change starts here. The brain is in charge. And so to the person with the question about the high blood pressure, we can help you using natural remedies, going through the detox process. I've seen so many people with high blood pressure have their blood pressure lowered by doing a reset. And I can talk with that person on a private one-to-one basis.
That would be great, Sam, if you could put your contact details in the chat. And just to speak to that, I think it went about 17 years ago when I hit about 40. And I thought I was pretty healthy because, Sam, we were playing squash together, remember? Every sort of other day, you and I would be playing squash. Yes, you remember those days. And I think it was just after you left, I took a test at Santon at the time and discovered I had high blood pressure. And I was shocked out of my mind because I was saying, well, how can I have high blood pressure? I went to the doctor, and this is just my own experience. And they says, is it hereditary? And I said, well, yes, my father has high blood pressure. I think my mom may have a little bit of it. I don't know. But yes, there are those in my family who have high blood pressure. So he put me on a series of tablets and said, I'll be on it forever. And yes, it had a serious effect on my brain. I mean, it's terrible. But I came to a conclusion as I did my research, and I'm not speaking for the individual who's speaking to. I do think they should take advice. But for myself, I said, this can't be a lifestyle. This can't be a hereditary issue. This must be something to do with lifestyle. Now, whilst I was wiping the court with you, Sam, clearly, and thinking I was fit, clearly something was fundamentally wrong. And so I went back to looking at my diet, looking at my exercise, looking at a whole host of things. And for me, I said, no, I decided to change my dietary approach, change my exercise approach. And I've never had high blood pressure issues again. Right. But had I listened to the doctor, I'd still be on it today.
Right. But in that process, you had to buy a blood pressure machine.
I did.
You had to monitor make sure that the readings were right, share them with your doctor, and then in consultation, it was your doctor who said, right, the lifestyle change that you're making have kicked in, and it's on that basis that we can withdraw.
And then my doctor said it doesn't warrant taking the tablets anymore.
Absolutely, and I think that's a responsible way, and I would say that every household should have a blood pressure monitor. You know, because it's a silent killer. You really should have a blood pressure monitor, and to make sure that you're checking it from time to time. But if you're doing the right things, you're eating the right foods, and you're going on the exercise, you're going to bed at a reasonable time, etc., then you know you're resetting your body, putting your body in a good condition for healing and repair.
Well, I think we have come to the end of our time. It's been a very profitable time.
Yes.
Pastor Sam, Rowena, as always, you never fail to inform us and to enable us and empower us with knowledge that can assist us to make better decisions relating to our health. But given the fact that our theme for this month is about headspace, I think you've beautifully transitioned from just health to the appreciation of how it informs our headspace. And I appreciate the way in which you've done that, and we thank you for that. It's been incredibly beneficial for those who are online, who are watching this. The WhatsApp number, we'll try and put it in the chat. Is that okay, Pastor Sam? Is that okay if we put your number?
I'll put it there.
Okay, fine. Okay, that's great. But I was thinking on the face, on those other platforms as well.
Yeah.
And we wish that you would continue the good work that you have been both doing. And the question has been asked, could we please have the presentation as well? I was taking pictures of those areas because I was saying, okay, you know, and so there's the question, you know, can we have the presentation as well? It is so informative. We hope there's no copyright on your work that you're willing to share for the sake of all. So if that is the case, it'd be great if you could upload it into the chat whilst we're speaking. So if it can be uploaded into the chat, then
it's a rather big file.
No, it's very easy to do. Literally, you just need to go to the actual place where it has an icon that looks like a file, click it, then literally go to your computer, choose the file, and it will be uploaded straight away.
Oh, really?
Okay, whilst that is happening.
Yeah, so while that is happening, Sam, from somebody who was a couple years ago, you've spoken about necessarily, and I don't even think it's a couple, I think it's 6, 7 years, 8 years ago, let's say within the last decade, you weren't necessarily, you were vegetarian, wanting a great lifestyle, but weren't necessarily at your optimal health. For somebody who wants change costs something, right? You've shown beautiful food, but most people don't have time to prepare food, right? Rowena, we've seen that you're making these beautiful recipes. Sam and Rowena, how do I transition? If you spoke about me buying oat milk, but you spoke about it better if I make my own oat milk. How do I do that? How do I shift from going to the store, just picking up my almond dream milk off it? How do I transition to blanching my nuts? How do I do that? Because I don't think there's anybody listening that doesn't want a better lifestyle, but I might not be prepared to pay the price that you're paying. In simple terms, how do I do it?
I think you've got to do what fits into your lifestyle. Sam and I are retired. We live on a farm. We have access to a lot of natural things. I'm here full time.
Yes.
But if I was working, I had children, I would go to the shop and get the best good biological soy milk I can get, a good plant milk. But also making nut milk is also easy. You get some almonds, you put in some water, you might soak it. If it's not soaked, you can still do it, blend it and strain it, and you've got your milk. And you make simple, easy recipes. You don't have to make fancy things. Salad and some stewed beans and good whole wheat rice, that's a good meal. You do what's within your capacity and you slowly develop and grow. When you start something for the first time, it takes a while to get into things. But when you get into things, you can do it faster, you can adapt, you can be more organized, prepare things the night before. I don't think anybody can tell you, you must do it this way, nor would we say do it the way we do it, because we started this lifestyle, is it 5 years ago? Mm-hmm. About 5 years ago. So we've evolved and we've developed. So you've got to start baby steps. Right. Yes. And do what you can and pray and grow. That's what I would say.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Great stuff.
And I agree with you that also YouTube is so informative. Absolutely. If you use it for the right reasons, it will not only give you information, but show you how.
Oh, it's great. It's absolutely great. If I want something, I just go to YouTube.
Yeah. Best way.
We'll show you how.
Best way indeed.
Fantastic.
Well, Pastor Sam.
Sorry, I'm struggling to do this upload. I don't know how to do it.
No problem. It's very simple. Basically, there is, if you go to where it says everyone on your right-hand side, which is the chat messages on the chat.
Right. Yes, I've seen that.
And then you'll see a file. So you've got a smiley face. And then you've got and there's a file. Click the file. Click the file. And then from there, it will take you to where you will upload it. So on your computer, where is the actual file? And then you literally click for that place, choose it, and then it will upload it straight to the Zoom chat. Okay. Simplest way to do it. Okay. And so whilst Pastor Sam is technologically working through some of these challenges, we are grateful. We are grateful that he is erudite when it comes to the knowledge of health. We pray for him on the technology side so that it will be uploaded. But whilst they are doing that, we just want to maybe just let you know what's happening next week. Paulette can speak to that, okay?
So what is happening next week is that we have the one and only sitting right next to me. Errol will be speaking about shift your headspace. And one of the things that we have asked you to speak about is the notion of failure, because I think that this is what impacts us when we think about our headspace, we take very personally. So Errol, what are you going to be talking about?
No, I think what we're going to do is, I'm just going to be obviously sharing some of my own personal journeys, but I think what's important is, how we have typically viewed failure and how failure really actually is. And really that failure fundamentally is only once you have stopped trying can you consider that you have failed. But if you're still continuing in the struggle of what it is you're seeking to accomplish, then you have actually not failed. And there are some moments where the things that you've recognized that you're pursuing actually is not the right thing for you. That is not evidence of failure, but rather you have learned. So I want to reframe the way in which we look at failure and how that correlative affects our headspace. And that's what I'm going to be sharing, both from a biblical perspective and also from a practical perspective too.
Great. So we will also be continuing Headspace for the 5 Sabbaths of this month. And what I think is that, Sam, there may be a suggestion that if you are struggling to upload, maybe you can send it to us, and then we can put it on our WhatsApp groups, and then maybe also have it on our website. And for those of you who are on the social media platforms, if you go to www.metromission.church, what we can then make sure is that for those of you not on our WhatsApp group, then you can also get access.
Indeed.
It is uploaded now, Paulette. I managed to
so everybody's got it.
It's coming. We'll see that it's coming up.
Technological challenges.
That's great.
Great stuff.
Thank you so much.
So we just want to open up the site for those who just want to say, just to wave out and just to say thank you very much, Pastor Sam. So I don't know if those who are on the site, the Zoom platform, can just open up their cameras just to give Pastor a wave there, just to say thank you so much. Just loving it. Great stuff. I just appreciate what you've done. And we see folks from different spaces and different
so
places.
Much.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's always learning. It's always learning. Beautiful.
Great work. Great stuff indeed.
I love you all. That's beautiful.
Love you all.
Thank you so much.
God bless to everyone on YouTube and Facebook. Take care. We'll see you next week.